Welcome everybody to Hunting with Tripler, and my name is Nick. I have been joined by two random fellows that I found on YouTube. I'm not really sure exactly who they are, but I'm sure you'll learn a lot about them. You can check out the series that the three of us have put together, plus Thane, on Chase's channel, which is the first segment. You can check out Caleb's channel as well for part 2. Mine is part 3, and part 3 is about the fun stuff. The fun stuff of reselling, which is what are the biggest flips you might have found in your career? What are the biggest flops you might have found in your career? And just what are the tools that you use to go out and source some of those amazing finds?
I collect so many things. Would you like to share this journey with me? I will show you the prizes I got today. So come along with me, come on and join in the chase, yeah!
My whole journey, if you've been following my channel, is about the finds. So I'd like to introduce to you Chase after the right price over here.
Hello.
Introduce Caleb down here with Phoenix Resale. Thane right below me with Chase after the right price. Gentlemen, introduce yourselves as well if you'd like, but I'm excited to get things started. Take it away, Thane.
All right. Well, let's do a little bit of introductions here. So, Chase, kick us off.
So I am Chase with Chase After the Right Price, and I'm very excited to be here with these guys talking about resale. Not a lot of people understand and are able to talk about resale like these dudes, so this is going to be a good time. Let's do it.
Yeah, and I'm Caleb. My channel is Phoenix Resale, and yeah, I'm thrilled as well. It's been a lot of fun. We've had a lot of good conversations already, and I think this conversation will be especially entertaining, so I'm excited to be here.
For sure.
And my name is Thane, and I am not a reseller, but I am here to hang out and love hanging out with these guys. And again, if you haven't seen the first 2 videos, go back, watch those on these guys' channels. And then also, if you haven't liked and subscribed yet, do that now. We want to see Nick get to that 1,000 number quick, and I think that we can do that. So subscribe, like, engage. We'll see you in the comments. We're here to answer questions and stuff. But without further ado, let's get into it. All right. So the first question is, what is your biggest flip? So this is your time to just go full bragging rights. So what is your biggest flip that you've had? So home rules, of course. So Nick, start us out.
All right. So I thought a lot about this, and I think a lot of people love to see finds, right? Especially if you can capture it on video. Unfortunately, mine was not captured on video. I've had some really awesome finds. Like, just give you a couple of examples. This won't be the creme de la creme, but I have found things like in-box LG HDMI VCR DVD recorders, which sell for like $900 to $1,000 at a thrift store for like $10. Those are gems that you uncover from time to time. I found fragrances new in a box that, $10, $15 that you sell for $200 or $300. There are these great finds that are out there. They're so much fun. But for me, the greatest find of all time
Drum roll.
is a story that is not just one find, it's many finds. So I have in my reselling past purchased storage lockers. So if anyone ever watched Storage Wars at all, you know the allure of buying a storage locker, and just the hunt of finding something that you couldn't possibly see was really exciting. I wanted so much to do that at least once or twice. And so back, I think 2013, early 2013, I was engaged to be married, and we were in the process of looking at buying a house. And I thought it would be a really great idea to figure out how I could supplement some of those costs by buying a storage unit. And went to a live auction. This was before you could really buy them online. And I went to a live auction, and they opened the door, and they opened the one next to it, and they said, these 2 units are being sold together. And there was about a group of 50, 60 people. And I saw it, and it was like a 10 by 40, which is massive space, 400 square feet, and it's like 10-foot ceilings. And there were 2 of them. So multiply that by 2. And I literally jumped. I was like, oh my God, there's so much stuff in here. And again, this is like maybe my second or third storage locker live sale I'd ever gone to. And in that moment, everyone who knew anything about buying storage lockers started walking away. They all were like, well, this is total trash. This is just, I mean, because there were shelves on the ground. There were things that were everywhere. But you know what I saw? Saw two things that stuck out in my mind. And I'm not going to take forever to tell this story, but I saw two things. I saw a pack of Pokemon cards on the ground that looked like it had never been opened. I was like, man, I know what that is. And then off in the corner on a shelf, I saw an NES. And I was like, again, and this was before I was buying any type of Pokemon cards or before I was even doing any reselling of video games. I saw them and I'm like, is anyone else seeing this? Am I like the only one? Because they all walked away. And the guy said, does anyone want to put a bid? And I said, $5. And he sold both lockers to me for $5.
Mercy.
Now, I found out that what I'd purchased was a vintage collectibles store that had closed down. The gentleman unfortunately had passed away years before, and his family was keeping up with the locker, and then eventually they were just like, we don't care anymore, and they just stopped paying it. And I went in. It took me 2 months. So I had to pay the storage fees because it took me so long to organize everything. It took me 2 months to organize name a collectible, guys. I had it. But this was before really, this was before Amazon really took off. eBay was still, it wasn't in its infancy. It was just not as robust as it is now. Craigslist was incredibly desirable, right? So all I can tell you is that if you named a collectible, put it in the comments because I'll guarantee you I had it. I would like to see if anyone could try to think of a collectible that I didn't have, because I think this will be a fun game because I had it. And then ultimately I paid for my wedding and I got $5,000 extra to put down on my down payment on my house. So the greatest flip was a storage locker, a dual set of storage lockers that I bought. It turned out to be what got me through my first month of marriage and my first initial walkthrough on my house. That's
incredible.
So leave it to Nick to find two giant storage lockers full of junk.
Death pile!
And somehow make it romantic.
Nick, you just perfectly described a dream I had last night.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
All right, that's me.
Caleb, how about you?
Yeah, so my best flip happened about a year ago when I was still pretty heavy in the book selling world. So, and this actually could be a helpful tip for anybody else who is in that niche or anybody who's just starting out, because I had kind of a sort of a guerrilla acquisition strategy of I had like very little money and decided to just email a whole bunch of churches in the area saying, hey, if you have like a library with like extra books that you are going to donate or that you just need gone, I will pick them up for free. And if you would, consider donating to me, I'm a small local business and, would be happy to do that. And so I did a few pickups that way, actually formed a pretty good connection with one of the larger churches in town that they had like this donation center and nobody ever took their books. So I could go there and pretty much take what I wanted anytime. So that was really good. But the biggest one happened, it was probably like a month and a half after I had sent those emails out initially. Some random person that I had not contacted reached out to me and said that he had heard from the secretary of their church that I was doing book pickups. And he had a whole bunch of books that he had tried to donate to like a couple nonprofits in town. And because they were religious books, they wouldn't take them. And so he was just looking like to be rid of these things. I went over there and it turns out he was like a post-seminarian and had an entire library of theological books and commentaries that he wanted gone. So I took them all. It was probably like 1,000 pounds of books that I loaded in like 2 or 3 trips in my Prius. And one of those.
Prius represents.
Oh,
Woo!
yeah. Once you go Prius, you never go back. Unless, of course, you buy a van. Then maybe you do. But one of those commentary sets, the most expensive one, sold the week that I listed it for $700. And then once I pieced out everything else on Amazon, I probably made $4,000 to $5,000
Oh, yes.
on those books. And they were free.
And the price was right.
So the price was right. Amen.
That is the walking definition of hustle.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nice work, man.
Yeah. So the takeaway from that story, especially to people who are like just starting out, is like there is free stuff around if you just like put in the work of like getting your name out there. Like I've heard of people now like sending notifications on the Nextdoor app saying, "Hey, Goodwill's not open, but I am. So like if you've got stuff that you're looking to donate, like I will come pick it up from you." And it's just free inventory. Like people are getting video games, getting some solid clothes and stuff that way. And if you just need stuff to list, like it's out there, especially now, oftentimes for free. So
good tip.
But yeah, that's my story.
Good tip. That is a good tip.
It's a very Gary Vee style story.
It really is.
Wow, that's high praise.
Do it. All
Let's
right,
take out a victim. Well, I lose because I paid the most money for my score. I paid $20.
Money bags.
And this is actually on video. It was sometime in like season 2, a couple years ago. A computer game for the Apple II, and this was actually an entire like collection purchase from a dude who lives now in Michigan, but he originated out of California, which is relevant. I'll get to that later. But he had just incredible condition, complete Apple II, computer games from early 80s. Just the most beautiful condition you've ever seen on this type of stuff. And I asked about old video games. He didn't have any of it sitting out. So he's like, "Yeah, I mean, I got some old computer games," which is not exciting to hear normally. Like, I guess I'll take a look. He brings up one box, and there's these Apple II games. I've never seen them before. I've never dealt with them. I'm like, there might be something here. And then I kind of dig in, and I find like a Super Nintendo box. No game. I don't even remember which game it was, but I'm like, "Oh, dude, this guy, he's got some SNES games, So I'm getting excited about those. I'm like, "Do you have anything else?" He goes, gets another box, goes back down, gets another box. I'm just looking through stuff, just hoping for SNES games. While I didn't realize I was already sifting through gold. And so he's asking me like, "What do you want the computer too?" He brings up the Apple II computer and everything. So he's just got it all. And he says, "How much would you be willing to pay?" I was like, "Well, I'll give you $20 for everything." And I thought that was pretty fair because I'm like, a couple of games might be worth $5. We might have $1 a piece. I didn't know.
You know what you had.
No.
Yeah.
So and it's so funny watching the pickup. There's one game in particular called A Calibeth World of Doom, which is the game that the guy that created Ultima, which is like the first RPG ever made, that was a game that he made in high school and had a setup with a local shop in California. That was the only place in the world that sold it. And so this guy happened to pick up in A Calibeth World of Doom. Didn't even come with the original box, but he had everything. He had the manuals, the paperwork, everything with it. And I put this game up on auction because I could tell that it was like, I couldn't find it. It seemed like it might be special. It gets to 1,000. It gets to 1,500. It gets to 2,000. I'm like, what is going on? I Google the name of the game and find a tweet from a British museum who says, "We're the proud owners of one of 5 in the world of this Calibeth World of Doom game." So I found the 6th in a basement in Michigan, and it sold for $3,300.
Oh, yes.
7-day auction. I think I probably could have gotten a lot more because obviously the right people might not have seen it in that 7-day span.
Yeah.
But obviously I was stoked. And I did end up, coincident, the guy texted me, so I had gotten his number just in case he found more. And he texted me, "Hey, I found another box."
Oh,
like,
good
boy.
Lord.
So I did get the chance to go back and like say, hey man, like this was while the auction was still live. I said it ended up being worth a lot more than I thought. So, will you just take this extra money? I don't remember how much. I think it was $500, and that was when the auction was at like 1,000. So I just figured I'd split the profits with him. Well, I mean, it wasn't a split, but at first he didn't even take it. His wife comes out and he tells her that I tried to give him more money, and she's like, just take it. So I took more money. I got more games.
Oh,
and it probably ended up being $7-8 grand in total sales, because there was a lot of $200-300 games in there. So
Dang.
Apple II games, look out for them.
Another
Hello.
one.
Who would have thought?
But I lose because I paid $20. So 520 after.
Is that really even a flip?
I gotta step up my game, fellas.
Oh gosh,
Wow.
that's so good.
That's special.
Well, that's the video. No, I'm just kidding. So,
Yeah.
that's so good. So let's get to the dark side now. What is your biggest flop? Because YouTube, we typically don't show the flops. We only show the like, wow, look at this score. What is your biggest flop? So we'll go in reverse order this time. So Chase, biggest flop you've ever had.
I'm not going to go into many details because I don't really want to talk about it, but my biggest flop was at an estate sale, and they had Atari games, Magnavox Odyssey, super retro, early 80s, no like Nintendo or anything. And there was a ton of people waiting for this estate sale. I knew they had games. They were in like USPS crates, mailing tubs, dirty, just, but I saw a couple nice ones in there as the guys in front of me were sifting through and walking out with armfuls. And so at some point I'm just like, I'm just going to buy them all. And they're $2 a game. And I decided I'm just going to buy them all. So I was kind of that guy, and just brought them all up to the front. I was like, they'll probably work a good deal for me. I'll be able to just get them for a couple $100. He counts every single game individually ×2. So I ended up paying like $1,400, and it ended up being the majority like just garbage Atari 2600 games, tons of duplicates. I might have broken even, but it was after like 200 plus hours of work. Just it was a nightmare. So like I lost in the time invested. So learning experience. Don't do that.
Dang, that's a pretty brutal one. What I so far have found very fortunate about resale is, in general for me, I found that the wins tend to be much bigger than the losses. Like a lot of the time, especially if you're buying stuff cheap, it's like, oh, I paid $5 for this thing and it ended up not being worth anything, which is not the case for a lot of businesses. So I'm grateful for that. And personally, I've been pretty lucky so far too. A couple come to mind. One is I had all of these like little promotional cards that at one point you could get. They were like Fortnite cards or something like that, that they were just like given out at Target as part of a promotion. And so you could just get them that way. I was selling them for like 15 or 20 bucks or something a piece online. And I had like maybe about 15 or 20 of them. But I didn't realize at the time that like there are certain guidelines for how you're supposed to put a label on stuff for USPS. And so I had these small envelopes that I would just put a normal label on, and I would just bend it over the back. And I didn't realize that like that was a no-no. So I end up like I ship all these things out like all at the same time because they sold pretty quick, and ended up just one after another getting people pinging me like, hey, where's my thing? Where's my thing? It expires soon. Like I haven't seen it. It says it's like in Detroit and I'm in Australia or whatever. And turns out like their machine couldn't actually, like it's supposed to be able to read the whole thing at once. So even though the whole barcode was on one side, it couldn't, like it messed something up. Maybe it like broke $1,000 machine. I don't even know what happened with it. But I ended up having to refund all these people. I was out the shipping. It was probably only like maybe a couple $100 or so. But it was a total loss. And the other story that I'll say quickly that happened fairly recently is kind of the opposite of Chase's auction situation. I decided not to put this item on auction. It was this hat, this like old Pacers hat, gray one that I got from my grandma's attic. And it was probably the worst looking one of the bunch. I just picked a whole bunch of vintage hats because my grandpa was a hat collector and he had all these like ones left over that my grandma was like, you should just take these. So I did that. I was listing them all, and this one looked the worst. It was like it had yellow around the like the lining, and I was like, no one's gonna want this. So I put it up for $16. It sold instantly, and right afterwards, in the next like 2 hours, I had like 5 people messaging me saying, hey, will you cancel that order? And if you still have it, I'll give you $75, $100, $125. Like
no.
I probably could have gotten $150 or $200 for this hat because it's like an NBA draft hat, like what they wear in the draft. Apparently, it's really rare. I had no idea. It was just a gray hat to me, and so yeah, I lost out on like probably a couple $100 that way because I didn't know what it was. So I should have put that one on auction.
Heard.
Brutal.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. My sunk cost stories will make all of you cry. I don't want to talk about sunk costs because I've listed things not knowing what it was and really just ruining myself. In fact, one recently where I just listed a complete Atari Lynx system with like 18 games. And I was doing a lot of research. I was looking some of these things up, but I didn't realize that the system, the handheld, was the launch edition, and I had the box and the manual and all of the listings and everything that I had. I was pricing it out, and I put $400 on the listing. And I thought that was pretty good. It sold within about 2 minutes. And I was like, man, what's going on? And then I did more research after the fact. I didn't have people pinging me, but I did more research after the fact. And then I found out that the console I sold was a launch edition, and they were selling for like $700 or $800. There was something rare about it that I think went even beyond the fact that it was a launch edition. I think there was like a limited run for, doesn't matter. It sucked watching. But that is not my big loss story. The money that I lost was because I was duped completely, and I was too incompetent to realize and so excited about the purchase that I didn't take the time to really look aggressively at what I was buying. So this was early 2019. I had bought a video game lot from someone, and the pictures they put up, this was through OfferUp, and I love using OfferUp, by the way. The pictures they used were really fantastic. They had all the systems in boxes. They had games laid out not only by the system, but they also had kind of put the really valuable games kind of in a group, and then so on and so forth. And it was just so organized, and the way that they detailed out the listing was just really impressive. And it was like, there's no way I'm going to get this. And he put $1,000 on the listing firm. And you could tell the value with just the systems and even just a handful of games was well worth it. I mean, this was this was NES, N64, SNES, games, everything. And I'd taken the approach where, hey, I'll give you the full price for it if you give me a shot at it. And he said, I've gotten some offers, but if you can come today, it's yours. And you get that from time to time. You'll get someone say, if you can come today, it's yours. So I went, I looked, I kind of felt rushed a little bit because there was this emphasis on, hey, if you come today, there was a lot of factors that were just sort of tying in, especially when you have a family and you're out on the road after hours, you kind of like have this demon on your back, get home. This is after hours. You do not have time. So I went, I looked it over. It was exactly what I saw in the pictures. And instead of opening some of the cases and looking at the games really in detail, I was just like, I got it. I got a great buy. This is exactly what he listed. Took it home, and it wasn't right away. Because again, I'm the death pile king, right? So I kind of set a lot of this stuff aside. And then I would say about 3 days later, I started to just take a peek at some of the games. And I opened some of them, and I started checking the discs, and I was like, and I started with GameCube, of course. The discs, were destroyed. Absolutely trash. And then game after game, and then cartridge after cartridge, and system after system. Oh, no. I realized what I had bought was the guy had sold me effectively, if he was a game store, bought out a game store, He basically sold me everything that didn't work. There wasn't a game that you could pull, even if you resurfaced it. These were non-resurfaceable games, right?
Oh, mercy.
I probably ended up taking $400 or $500 loss. I was able to lot the systems together and sell them as parts, and I sold them locally. The games were almost a total loss. I did pull some of those up on eBay in groups. It was devastating, losing like $500. It might've been more than that, to be honest with you. And then I tried to message the guy.
Did it say anywhere in the original listing?
No. And my problem was I waited like 3 days, and you reach out to guys like that after the fact. He wasn't even on OfferUp anymore. His account was gone.
That's sketchy.
His account was gone.
Man.
So live and learn. Make sure if you're going to buy locally that they have a rating. I think that's critical. If there's a lesson to be learned there, don't buy from someone who has like a 0 rating or has no profile feedback. You're going to set yourself up for something bad. So I've had other stories like that, but that's the one that really takes the cake.
I think that Nick is onto something really important here. So how as resellers, because so much of what we do as far as buying stuff is in person, in the moment, at the garage sale. How do you kind of hedge yourself against situations like that? Because obviously Nick has probably learned a lot through that situation, learned how to adjust differently or look at things differently. Like, what are you guys doing to hedge risk? Because obviously this is not monopoly money. This is your income. This is real household money that you and your wife have. Like, how do you hedge against risk in this business?
That's a good question. I think one thing that I try to do, like if I'm at a garage sale or somebody that I don't know, and if stuff is dirty and has the potential for maybe not working, my fairly firm offer is going to be the I'll break even if everything is broken type of offer. But if you can kind of tell that they take really good care of their things and you do quick glances and everything looks perfect, then I'll be able to offer more. But yeah, I mean, that's one thing I try to do with garage sale bundles, and I know you know that thing with going with me. So.
Well, one thing that you get a lot of hate in the comments is like, gosh, you gave him so little on that. Like, you should have offered him more. You knew what you had. But the thing that people don't always take into consideration is not everything you buy is going to work.
Right.
Like, sometimes it's in a garage sale or at a pawn shop for a reason. It's where, like, yes, you could have, for that Paper Mario game, you could have given them more, but you bought 2 other copies of that in the past 6 months that didn't work.
You know, I can speak to that too. When you have the haters that are saying that, the one thing that I'll tell people who, when I'm buying it from, is, and you lowballers are going to lowball, and even if we're offering something at a price that may seem on camera like it's a lowball price, you also have to recognize that, did you get, let's say you bought a video game for $60. Did you get the $60 use out of the game? And if I wouldn't have come here and bought it at a garage sale, were you going to donate it and give it away for free and then let Goodwill make the money that I would have paid you right now? Because I think people don't necessarily walk through the process of, if you're going to offer them anything, that's a great deal for someone who doesn't even use it anymore. So I can appreciate both sides of it, where, Chase, you're going to give a guy a bunch of money on something that you made, $2,000 or $3,000 on. That's incredible. That's a really, really generous offer. But the flip side of that is you have no obligation to do that. You gave the guy something that was sitting in his basement that he would have never touched again. And I think the lesson there is these people got the use out of it they wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah,
I think that's great. And I think one of the things that's big on that is knowing what you like, buying what you're knowledgeable in. And I think Caleb said this in a previous video, is like, go and buy things that you know. So like, I want to talk on that a little bit. So Caleb, let's start with you. What are some of the things that you specialize in and you target because you specialize in them? Because that way there's not as much risk attached to it, because you've studied, you've gained knowledge, because you're not buying randomly. You're strategic about what you're doing.
Yeah, that's a great question. On the last question, really quick before I hop into that one, because I have been doing a lot of local deals recently, and there are a couple things that I've been doing that I haven't done in the past. One is I don't meet people at my house. Anytime I'm doing like Marketplace or Craigslist, I pick a location that is really close to me, like basically the closest parking lot to my house, and I don't meet anywhere else. Because one, I don't want people standing me up and wasting a bunch of time, but also I don't want them knowing where I live, and I don't want to like meet them on some like back street where they could mug me. Because a lot of the time I'm coming with like, you know, $200, $300, $400 worth of video game stuff, maybe if it's on my end, or I'm coming with a bunch of cash to buy video game stuff. So I do like to be safe about it that way. And the other thing is like on the like buying non-working goods side of things, because I'm meeting them there, and if I'm like buying a console, a system, I'm not going to be able to test it because I don't have like a generator or anything to plug something up. But I will have them send me a picture or a video of the console working ahead of time, just to sort of give myself some peace of mind. And you can fake something like that, but I think most of the time, if someone's on Marketplace and like they're trading you something or they're selling something, like that's more work than they're normally going to go to. So that was just what I had to say about that. But in terms of the question was, what am I specializing in? Yeah. So what I've been gaining more and more expertise in recently is definitely video, like games specifically. Like consoles, I feel like it's somewhat easy to learn a little bit quicker. Like, okay, a 3DS goes for like 50 to 100 depending on where you sell it. And, you know, Wii will go for either $40 or 200 if it's now. And so, but as far as the actual games go, that takes a little bit more time. And one way that I've really been honing that is I source a ton at pawn shops. And oftentimes they'll just have like shelves of games out there. And so I'll take my Amazon app and I'll just like scan barcodes of anything that I don't know. And that's a question that I get sometimes is like, when you're in pawn shops, do you just like pick out titles because you know everything, or are you scanning everything? And the answer is like, in the beginning, I scanned absolutely everything. Now I scan like maybe like 10% of just stuff that I haven't seen before. But anytime I don't know something, I will scan / look it up. And that's really the only way that I'm really aware of building your knowledge base and being able to make those decisions without taking that time. But one thing that I learned actually from Gary Vee, that's like the 4th time he's come up in this conversation, is using your spare time, like when you're normally either like derping around on like Facebook feed or Instagram, to just search eBay sold comps of like whatever niche you're most interested in. You can search like plush and sort by like highest sold value. And you'll learn a ton about like huge bolo items just by searching generic terms like that. So probably a little longer answer than you were really wanting, but that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, there's so much value in that. Like so much value in that. Chase, talk a little bit about, because like you said, you started in sports cards and then kind of shifted into video games. And now you're even shifting into toys and dolls and other sorts of things. Like I loved what Caleb said about how he would scan everything. And I go back to when we were 16 years old, and we'll go on disc traders and literally just go up and down.
We'd be there for 4 hours.
For hours.
Yeah.
Hours we do it. And I'd get a McChicken meal out of it. But I'm just kidding. But no, it was a blast. So Chase, tell us a little bit about kind of your process of how you find your specialty.
Well, I think it's very, very helpful if it's something that you're interested in. And that's how it started with me every single time. So sports cards, I would buy the price guides as a kid and just memorize them. Like I knew the significant cards of every set. I knew exactly what to look for. And I loved it. I collected them. And then I collected Pokemon cards as a kid. I would consider myself pretty close to an expert in those today for resale too. And played and loved video games. And then like just electronics in general, certain categories of those. So start with something that you're passionate about, that you already love, and you're already going to know a bunch, and you're going to have a better idea of what to look for. So, you know, in video games, like if you play video games and kind of know, you know, like, oh, RPGs or action adventure or games that have like cult followings, you kind of start to be able to identify those quickly. So, yes.
And if you're doing something you love, you learn to love gaining knowledge about it. Because like I remember when we were young, we'd be just hanging out and playing Guess That Rookie Year when it was sports cards. And we'd name a player and have to name the rookie.
I had all
Yeah.
the rookie years
Things like
memorized
that, you
because of cards.
Oh, you would win every time. Like it would be close. Quinn and I are just doing our best to try to keep up. But awesome. All right, how about you, Nick? So what is your specialty, Nick? Kind of what do you specialize? You said like you do a little bit of everything, but like if you were to go to one thing, what is your specialty?
I guess I'd categorize electronics, but that comes with the, I guess that comes with the umbrella of video games to a certain degree. But it's so hard to pinpoint one area, because one motivating factor for me is there profit in this category? That's number one. And number two is, how difficult is this item to ship? And you guys have seen in some of my videos, I travel for my day job, and that takes me to some interesting locations where I have free time. I like to thrift. Why not go out and see if I can source a few items? And if I can fit it into a suitcase, then, you know, I'll try to ship it back. There's this sort of breakage rate, this breakage percentage, generally speaking. So I have to factor that into my thrifting goals there. But bringing this back, I always think about categories that I would like to buy in. And you guys talk about scanning video games. I scan everything. I use, and just recently, Uniquely Me is a reseller channel with the Tommy Bernard Show. I don't know if you guys have seen them. Two great YouTubers. She turned me on to Google HoloLens. I think that's what it's called, Google Lens.
Yep.
And you could basically point it at an item that, like, say, an old toy that seemingly has nothing on it other than just the image itself, right? And it will point you towards the name of the item and maybe other comps of that item. So
Nice.
When we say scanning everything, I've gotten into shoes so heavy. I got into shoes. I have a stockpile of shoes that I've even started getting into, but shoes generally retain their value really well. So I don't fear that I've missed out on this trend of buying and selling shoes, because shoes are a good market that retain value. Sporting goods are up and down every time of year. So if you see my golf club collection, right now is the time I'm starting to list those items. Golf clubs sell really well.
Yeah.
Bats sell really well right now. But what I've gotten away from, as I talked about, electronics are sort of my niche. I've gotten away from buying and selling big items. I was buying like computer monitors for like $5 and shipping them, and the pain of shipping them, even though the margins were amazing, spend like 10 minutes, 15 minutes packaging this thing up. And afterwards I'd go, I have 3 more of these to ship. And
then the death pile grows.
And the death pile grows. And so electronics have great margins. Electronics in general have great margins. Anything from obscure mouses, you know, computer mice, to like rice cookers. I can't even begin to tell you the level of electronics that I've picked up that I've found great value in. But really now, today, what I've learned in the last couple of years, it comes down to what you're willing to ship out. And that's been sort of my gauge these days.
Nice.
Gosh, this series has brought, I think, so much value. I mean, to me, who's like just such a small hobbyist in what this is, like I'm getting little tidbits where some of it's just straight over my head. But I'm hoping, like, if you guys are watching this, I'm hoping you guys are getting value out of this. Comment below, let us know. So one kind of final question to kind of wrap this up is, obviously, the funnest part of all of this is the hunt, is sourcing. Like Nick said earlier, if you could pay someone to do all the rest and you could source, that's the dream job. So what are some tips for sourcing that you guys can give people? So in no order, like whether it's an application, like the garage sale maps, or like what are some tools, resources, or sourcing tips that you can get for people? How do you guys source?
I'll give you one that I've been using recently. I'll save the rest of them for you guys. I've been using YouTube auctions recently because I haven't been able to go out and source. 2 really good auctions, or one really good auction is, look up, if you're hearing this funny noise in the background, apologies, is Locker Nuts. He buys and sells storage lockers, and Locker Nuts is a YouTube channel, one really great channel in general, but he does YouTube auctions now almost 3 days a week. And there's like 2 or 3 people who in a group of like 300 people in the live auction chat that know anything about video games, and he pulls out video games, and I've been able to just like clean house. In fact, recently I bought a Game Boy lot that had Mega Man 5 Game Boy just chilling. Literally, no, I mean, do I have it sitting here? I don't.
It's a $100 game.
It's a $100 game, and I got the whole lot. I got a Game Boy in box. I got 2 Game Boy Colors. It's going to be a video that's coming out soon, so you'll see that on my channel. But the YouTube auctions have been phenomenal. I can't tell you like how it happened, but people have been using YouTube as a tool for selling inventory. And for me, I've been using that recently, and I've been loving it, really enjoying it. So
I've never even heard of that.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
I would just say some resources. Yard sale treasure map for whenever those are legal again.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Great app, and there's a lot of tips and tricks for how to use that, but it maps all the Craigslist listings and such and puts them on their location. You can just click on it and navigate to it. So I'll just say that one and throw it to Caleb.
Yeah, a couple that came to mind for me, especially recently, as I have been doing a little bit more sourcing online, doing some like video game arbitrage and stuff like that. With demand being as like fluctuating as it is right now, I think there's just a lot more opportunity for stuff like that. So I actually use a couple browser extensions that may be helpful for some folks. One of them is Ratukin, or it used to be called Ebates. That's basically an extension that gives you a certain % off on like most major retailers. Like GameStop is 3%, or it's not % off, it's cash back. Yeah. So like I just checked mine, and from the past couple months, I have like $60 in cash back. So that's kind of a nice little money saving tip. They basically just take your data and sell it. And my logic is like, my data is being sold so many ways anyway. If I can make a little money off of it, then that's awesome.
Then pro tip on that.
Yeah.
Use the cash back and give the gift cards or whatever you get to your wife.
Yes.
Marriage.
That'll be some mad support for the business. I've experienced this. It's great.
Nice work.
Did not expect to get that one. Man, I'll have to come with one of those next time. And then the other one in a similar vein is Honey. If you watch like almost any YouTubers, I feel like they just sponsor every major YouTuber. But
Beast.
yeah, I'd say maybe one in like every maybe 10 or 12 items I buy online, there's actually a discount for it. But you know, it does actually save me some money. So if you are sourcing at all like online arbitrage, those can really add up.
Yep.
And none of us are sponsored. But honey, if you want to sponsor us,
hey, speak for yourself, man. Honey just reached out to me yesterday. For my
my Mr. Two Sheds is sponsored.
Yeah, right. They saw my shed video. We're like, excuse me, Mr. Phoenix Resale, we have money for you.
Phoenix, Arizona, is that the correct address? Oh, guys. Oh, this has been fun, guys. I've really enjoyed this.
Great time.
This was part 3 of 3 of a series. So part 1 was over on Chase's channel. Part 2 was over on Caleb with Phoenix Resale. And this is part 3. So, Nick, any closing remarks for us?
Closing remarks is I want to say thank you, first of all. Both of you guys are incredible YouTubers. I think both of you are just great people. And Thane, thank you for moderating. Really, just generally speaking, you're all great people, great YouTubers. Thanks for inviting me in and letting me be a part of this. I think for all of you out there that are watching these videos, I hope that there's been some value here, because I think all of us, if you watched any of our channels, you recognize that we're doing this to, one, for the love of doing it, right? We love making YouTube videos. We like going out there and reselling, and bringing you a part of the journey is hopefully both educational for you and that you enjoy it, that you have fun. And there's a creative element for all of us. I know, speaking for myself, there is nothing more fun than having my creative outlet be for something that you guys can enjoy and watch. So thank you again. If you want to like and subscribe, make sure you do. If you're at my channel, I know there's only a few of you, but I really love the audience that I have. Please make sure you make your way over to Phoenix Resale, make your way to Chase After the Right Price. And of course, if any of you are coming over from both of those channels, I really appreciate it as well. In terms of just what we've been able to talk about today, you can't begin to understand that this has been something that all of us have either been doing for a short time or a long time. But as Chase was saying earlier, just do it. Get in and do it. Learn from pros, watch videos, educate yourself. And I think in the end, you'll recognize that there's definitely money to be made and a lot of fun to be had.